Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Lazy Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Sam Priestley, and as normal, we're joined by the lovely Emma Priestley.
Hello!
Today we're going to be talking about how to start an Amazon FBA business, which is my most popular blog post of all time. It's something I get asked about a lot, and it's something I've made quite a bit of money out myself, and my main business is sort of focused around Amazon. That's the biggest outlet channel for it. And it's also something that has changed quite a lot since I've been doing it. So I started in 2013, I think. So it's been about 5 years, and the landscape has changed quite a bit. Some of the stuff we're talking about might be easier to see written down if that's the case, and you can check out my articles already on it. The best one to start is how to start an Amazon FBA business. So you can either find it on my website at sampriestley.com, or you can Google it, how to start an Amazon FBA business, Sam Priestley. Alright, let's get going. So first off, I wanted to talk about what is an Amazon FBA business. I think there's a lot of misconceptions here, because Amazon FBA is only really describing, the FBA part is the fulfillment network that Amazon uses. That's basically their set of warehouses where you can store your products in. You basically pay them a kind of monthly rental fee, and they'll store your products. And then if someone buys something you're selling that are in those warehouses, they'll deliver it for you. And then when you can link that up to Amazon itself, so you can list your products on Amazon. You'll appear with that little Prime icon sticker thing. And when someone buys your product, as far as they're concerned, it might as well have been sold by Amazon, because it will be delivered in an Amazon box from an Amazon warehouse with the same next day delivery or same day delivery type thing.
And for those who don't know what FBA stands for?
It stands for Fulfillment by Amazon, which is the service. The thing is, Amazon FBA is so easy. What we've seen is that it basically created this big arbitrage opportunity where more and more people were moving over to Amazon for their purchasing, but the prices on Amazon weren't really reflecting how much you could buy stuff for elsewhere. So when Amazon FBA started, what you saw was a lot of people going around just buying in wholesale items, sending it off to an Amazon warehouse and listing it on there for slightly more than you'd be able to buy it elsewhere.
In a shop
or on another online website, because people weren't really price comparing. They just wanted to get everything from Amazon. And that was, back when it first started, this was kind of 2013, about maybe a little bit before that. But there was a lot of people doing that when I started using Amazon FBA. And that model still kind of works. People call it like retail arbitrage. It's quite different now. You can't just hope to resell any old thing, but people will often, go around supermarkets and shops and look for stuff that's on offer, and then send that straight off to Amazon and sell it on there. But really, very few people are doing that at scale on Amazon. There are a few, and what they normally do, the way they normally do it is they manage to get such good deals with the manufacturers of the item that they can actually be price competitive. It's no longer about being the only person on Amazon. Now everybody's selling on Amazon. It's more about having some other USP that you can add to it, which could be your size. You could be ordering in such bulk that means you can get a lot cheaper. It could be that you've managed to negotiate like an exclusive distribution rights with the manufacturer. But when we talk about Amazon FBA business, I'm not really talking about that style. I'm talking about selling your own product, something that's under your own brand.
Something unique,
something that someone can't just come on and sell a cheaper version of.
Yeah.
For instance, if I was selling Coca-Cola on Amazon, Coca-Cola themselves could come along and post it on Amazon and undercut me, and there's not really anything I could do about that. So with Amazon FBA businesses, the way people first started doing them was by just finding a product that people wanted, finding a manufacturer of it, getting quite a generic product and just slapping their brand on top of it. So it'd be completely identical to 9 or 10 other things on Amazon, and then they would just compete on a bit of price, trying to build a little bit of a brand presence, and then focusing on their marketing on Amazon and actually driving people to their listing. This worked quite well because it meant that competitors couldn't list under the same product. So the way Amazon works is that there's what's called the buy box. So if you're selling a generic product which other people could also buy, they can also sell on the same listing. So let's say I search for a popular board game like Monopoly. If you go on there and you click buy now, Amazon has an algorithm which chooses who you're buying that from. Whereas if you look on the side, there'll be a little section which says available from all these other buyers.
Yeah, 20 other buyers, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And there'll be 20 plus other people, of which half will also be using Amazon FBA, because it will say sold by Sheila's Toys, fulfilled by Amazon, sold by Frank's Bits, fulfilled by Amazon, or whatever. And by white labelling, by putting your own brand on something, you could lock down that listing and mean that you always win that buy box. But the difficulty there is, how do you differentiate your product from everyone else's? So on the article I wrote about this, how to start an Amazon FBA business, I show a few screenshots where I found people who've done this. It's quite a generic product, and I've got a screenshot of where you buy it from at like the manufacturer's page on a factory wholesale website, and then pictures on Amazon, and you can see it's the same product, and someone just put a little logo on it just to kind of lock it down. That still does kind of work, but really now what you need to be doing more of is brand building, and basically trying to add value to whatever it is you're creating, both by changing it slightly, so maybe looking for a product that's already been sold that has some problems, something that you can improve on it, and then improving on it, or by building a sort of persona around your brand that people associate with quality, which is, quite clear. Like if you're buying certain trainers, you can almost tell like the price and the quality aren't necessarily that linked, but they're more linked to the brands that they're associated with. And that's kind of what a lot of people are trying to do with their brand building.
Yeah, and the visual identity is key, because if you're buying a pair of trainers online, you can't pick up the product and try it on and feel the quality of the fabric. You've got to go on what it looks like. Yeah,
and I know as a customer that if I buy no-name brand that's quite cheap, it might be amazing, but it also might be rubbish.
Yeah.
Whereas if I buy a big name brand, I know it's probably not going to be the best thing ever. It's probably going to be quite expensive, but I get that consistency of knowing that it's going to be at least a certain standard.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we are. Where now, if you want to build an Amazon FBA business, it's more about putting together a strong brand and building in product improvements to what you're doing. Okay, so that's the start. So let's talk a little bit about how you choose what product you're going to sell on there. So again, people take kind of two routes with this. One is to focus on stuff that they know a lot about, that they know they kind of have a marketing angle on. So for instance, I'm quite into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and something that would be quite obvious for me to do as a business would be to start selling Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu equipment, because I know a lot of people in the sport, and I know that I'd already have a market ready to push, and I know quite a lot about it. I know how to improve on what's already out there.
Why haven't you done that? That's quite an interesting idea.
Busy with other things. So that'd be quite obvious for me, but that doesn't mean like there might not be an obvious gap in the market for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu equipment.
Yeah.
In some ways, that doesn't matter as much. It'd be nice to delve to it that other people compete in a way that other people might not be able to. The other way people do it is from the complete opposite angle, is they just look for gaps in the market. They use sort of product research tools to find stuff that are selling quite well, that don't have too many reviews, where maybe the quality of the images and the listings aren't that good, and they know that they can release something that's quite similar, maybe a little bit better, under their brand, and they'll get more sales because their listing and their marketing on Amazon will just be better.
Yeah.
And there are some quite big companies that do this and sell all sorts of stuff from whatever, toys to kitchen appliances to sports equipment, everything. To them, it doesn't matter what they're selling. It doesn't matter if they're interested in it or not. All that matters is whether they think that they have an advantage, which means they'll sell a lot of product and make a lot of money. If you want to learn a bit more about how to find gaps in the market, then take a look at my blog post, which you said earlier, you can find easily by just Googling how to start an Amazon FBA business, followed by my name, Sam Priestley. We're going to park that for the moment and assume that you kind of decide what you're doing. Maybe you've got an idea of what are these types of businesses you're going to do. Is it something you're interested in, or are you just going to look for gaps in the market? But how do you choose what product you want to sell? There are a few different criteria you probably want to have a look at, and I think the best thing for me to do now is just refer you to kind of blog posts I've written on my site about this, because stuff like pricing, size, competition, complexity such as electricity and laws around it all kind of play a factor, and it's hard for me just to really talk about them because it involves a lot of numbers. So let's have a look at, again, on sampriestley.com, how to start an Amazon FBA business. But let's move on to talking about creating your brand. Now, unlike when I started, it's got a little bit more complex, and Amazon have kind of created their own way of tracking who owns what brand. Because the problem is that a lot of fake products started appearing on Amazon, and especially with smaller brands, it was very difficult for them to work out who the brand belonged to. How do you know who to believe? And I've spent ages and days and trying to convince Amazon that ours are the real ones, and that everyone else who's putting it on is just fraudulent and just trying to trade off our brand name. So to get around this, Amazon introduced what they call brand registry, which is a way for you to sort of list with them that you are the brand owner. And in order to be registered on brand registry, you need both a website and a trademark. So when creating your brand, it's very important to check that nobody owns your trademark already. Because I've had a few friends. I had one who was selling a huge amount on Amazon, only to find maybe 3 years in that some other company already owned his trademark and had to rebrand, which was a bit of a disaster. So different trademark registration places. If you're here in the UK, you might as well use the UK one. It's pretty straightforward. It's got a pretty straightforward search function, and you can try and register your trademark for, I think it's about £150. It's not very expensive. So I suggest doing that straight away.
Yeah, when you set up your business.
Same with setting up a website. Bear in mind, you're trying to create a brand that has value outside of just Amazon. So you want that, even though you're going to be selling mainly on Amazon, if someone searches and comes across your item, you want them to be able to go onto you want them to be able to go onto Google and actually find sort of corroborating evidence that it's a good brand, which includes having like a good website, having social media, all the kind of stuff that a decent brand would. When starting an Amazon FBA business, think about it as if you're starting a huge brand, like something that you're going to be selling everywhere, even if you're mainly going to be targeting Amazon, and that's where you're kind of angling your marketing and stuff at. So you got your idea of a product, you got your brand sorted and your brand name. Now it's time to start actually getting it manufactured. So how do you do that? Well, there's lots of ways. You can find a little factory near you to do it. You can make it yourself in your living room. Or what most people do is they look for a factory in somewhere like China that already makes a similar type of item, and then gets them to make one for you as well. Most people use Alibaba for that, which is, I'm sure you've all heard of it. It's the kind of Amazon competitor in China. But it's also used by a lot of factories and wholesalers. If you kind of search for what you're looking for, whatever that may be, electric drills followed by OEM. OEM stands for Original Equipment Manufacturer, which means basically that they're the ones who make it, and therefore they can make alterations to it if you want it. Generally, I think when I'm making alterations to products, I'll look at, because you're targeting Amazon, so it makes sense for you to look at what your competitors are doing, read their reviews, and see what people are complaining about, and then fix that, and then push that a little bit with your marketing. And also it means that you're probably not going to get the same bad reviews, so you're going to get higher average reviews in the long run. So you find a factory, you can start messaging them. You're kind of looking for a couple of things really. One of them is, is the factory reputable? Because there's quite a lot of fakes out there. There's also a lot of agents who pretend to be factories and kind of just act as middlemen, and you don't really want that. So you look for ones on Alibaba. You can kind of see what sort of turnover they're doing on Alibaba. You can see how long they've been on there, whether they've got all the kind of awards. You can also have a look at their websites. You can even hire someone out in China to go and visit it for you.
Have you ever done that?
We have sent people around. Yeah. Generally, you can kind of tell, especially once you start talking to them. Another big thing is you want an English speaker. Maybe not perfect English, but someone you can communicate with.
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot to it.
And most of that communication, do you do over email? Do you ever have to phone them?
Never phoned any in my life.
Yeah.
Suggested it, but generally their English isn't good enough for that.
Yeah.
Preferred methods are normally WhatsApp or Skype, or the WeChat and kind of the Chinese equivalents.
Yeah.
Also, Alibaba is not just China. It's also India and kind of a lot of other places where manufacturing is big and affordable.
Yeah.
So generally, my sort of approach is talk to factory, try and get a sample. Sometimes I'll send them out for free. If they don't send them out for free, I'll ask for them to, instead of skip the sample phase and go straight to a prototype so they can prove they can actually make some of the alterations I want. That will probably cost somewhere around £100 to £200 for that prototype. I might get that from 2 or 3 different places. And then once I find them and choose my favourite, then we go ahead. When it comes to kind of negotiating, there's a few things that are kind of important. And especially when you start off, probably price and the minimum order quantity are the 2 most important. Because a lot of factories won't want to sell to you unless you're buying kind of by the container load. Recently we tried to buy some table tennis balls, and the best factory who made them would only sell them by a shipping container load, which was something like 13 million table tennis balls.
Yeah, I was going to say, give us an idea of what a container load actually means. How many does it mean in terms of bats? Because obviously balls are very small.
Balls are very small. It depends. Like, we don't buy anything really with container load.
But a rough idea. And is it container load in the packaging, or is it pre-packaging?
Well, they won't tell you by the container load. They'll often say minimum order is 20,000 units or whatever it is. Okay. And it would be in the packaging, yes. Yes. And then when you argue and you say, actually, I only want to buy 200 of them, they'll say, well, no, we only sell it. The reason it's that amount is because of this. Yeah. But generally, like, if you're starting off, I think it'd be better for you to push hard and negotiating on the minimum order quantity than on the price. And then later, as you scale up, you can push on the price.
Right, that sounds good.
Because there probably will be stuff wrong with that first order. So you've done that. They now start making them. The payment terms are varied. Sometimes you pay at the end. Sometimes they want you to pay up front. Sometimes you'll use an escrow service such as Alipay or PayPal, where you have a bit of buyer protection, but then they take a commission. Most places will want you to. It depends. A lot of them will do stuff like 30% up front, 30% up front. Something, it might be like this: 30% up front, 30% when they finish, and then the final 40% when you take collection of the goods. But it varies, and it's kind of what you're comfortable with. My thoughts are, if you're getting a small enough minimum order and it's coming in kind of £1,000, say, it's cheaper to take a risk on getting that made, and it might not turn up, than having bought the ticket, flown all the way out there, and then you still have to take the risk and pay for that. Yeah. Like, with a small enough minimum order, it's in all of your interests for this to work out. Whereas if you're buying a really big order, they're kind of a bit more incentivised to slightly screw you over on that transaction.
Well, it's a much bigger risk, isn't it?
It's a bigger risk for you, and there's more incentive for them to run off with your money. I've never been screwed over. Like, we never had anything bad happen. I don't think I know anyone who's had. I know lots of people who've had stuff like they'll get the electronics, then they'll open them up, and they'll be to a different specification of what they asked for. Actually, I had a similar thing where we had something produced, and the prototypes we were sent were a bit different to what they sent us with the final one. But again, we were starting off with such a small minimum order, and we're a big enough long-term purchaser that they were quite keen to sort that out and reimburse us for those problems. So they start making it, and then they finish it, and they tell you, we've got it. What do you do now? Well, one thing you can do is you can send an inspection team to go and have a look at it. So you can pay a third-party company out in China to go and have a look at the items. And you can give them like a checklist of stuff to look for, and what they normally do.
Wouldn't have thought of that.
No, and it saves you having to go out there. And often you'll negotiate this before they start manufacturing. So you'll say you're willing to accept like a certain percentage default rate. It's kind of up to you. There's no real set rules. Just the stuff you would feel comfortable with, go for. Generally, it's worth using an inspection service at the beginning, and then once you go to trust them and you're making regular orders, it matters less. Mm. The next step is actually the shipping. I've done a whole episode on this, so I'm not going to really talk about that. But one of the other podcast episodes is how to ship internationally. So have a read of that. The short answer is a freight forwarder will sort it out for you. So it arrives in your country. Now you've got to deliver it to Amazon. Again, we have a few other options that Amazon has for how they accept it. You can, they take prepaid. You can ship it to them through prepaid UPS labels, prepaid FedEx labels, where basically Amazon give you a really cheap deal on the shipping from kind of your house or your warehouse to their warehouses. That's what we do with like the gin, for instance. Actually, it's what I do for everything pretty much. Once it lands in the country, I'll switch over to the prepaid Amazon labels because they're often a lot cheaper than sorting out the shipping yourself. Amazon, especially when I started, were really annoying about their requirements to deliver to their warehouses. But with stuff like this, that kind of gets all sorted for you. Because it used to be you had to book in a delivery slot in a certain time and use this kind of archaic online booking in system. And often it would get rejected for not really any good reason. But by getting UPS or whatever to deal with it, it works well. Then when you deliver your stuff to Amazon, you kind of got a choice. Normally you'll have a barcode already, which is you can buy them online, either UPC or EAN codes. Again, I'll cover this all in the blog post. When you have a choice, Amazon can either use those barcodes for working out how much stock you have in their warehouse, etc. Or you can stick Amazon's own labels on top. And the advantage of using the Amazon's own labels is that it includes your sort of seller ID onto them. If you're going, the other option is called commingled inventory, where everybody selling the same product as you, Amazon doesn't know which ones belong to who. I really recommend using the Amazon labels, even though it costs a little bit more. Either you've got to stick them on yourself, or you've got to pay Amazon to do it, and I think it costs 15p or something a label for them to stick it on. But if you don't do that, then what sometimes happens, even though you're brand registered, someone might come along, send in some fake items and sell it under your stock, and then you've got no way of knowing, Amazon's got no way of knowing who sent that in, whether it's yours or the other person's. And even though you're the brand owner, that doesn't save you from that problem. And once you know there are some dodgy items in your inventory, it's going to be a lot of work kind of muddling through them all and checking each one.
Needle in a haystack.
That's kind of it, really. You stick your labels on it, you hand your box over to UPS, and it's kind of done. It's in Amazon. Now, Amazon have very cheap storage fees, provided they're in the warehouse for less than 6 months, which can be a bit of a problem if you're slow to shift stock. As soon as you get to that 6-month mark, the costs go up, what they call long-term storage fees. And once you get to the year mark, they go up even higher. So what a lot of people do is they'll store excess stock in their own warehouses or pay a third party for storage, and then when they're ready, they'll send them into Amazon, kind of drip feed them in. Just something to be aware of. Another reason to start with a low minimum order, because the last thing you want is to have all your stock stuck there and it costing a lot. It's quite difficult to liquidate stock that nobody wants to buy. So if you've got 1,000 kilograms of some product that nobody wants, that's costing you a lot each month just to store, like, there's not, what can you do about it to get back your initial investment? And there are liquidation companies who'll take it off your hand, but often you're talking like 10p on a pound for what you paid for them. So if you spent £2,000 on this, they might pay you 200 quid to take it off your hands. So be careful. Okay, there you go. You got your brand, you got your product you've created. It's awesome. You've taken some nice pictures, created your Amazon listing. You put it in the Amazon warehouse. So it's now ready for people to buy. How do you actually get some sales? So this is probably the most complicated part. The rest is all kind of just logistics, really.
Yeah, step by step.
Step by step. Whereas this, if there was one thing that worked, then everyone would do it, and then it would no longer work again.
Yeah.
But stuff that's consistent is you need good reviews, you need sales, and you need momentum. That's what I mean by those things. So Amazon has its own review system, which you've probably seen, and is actually getting a lot of people coming to distrust it quite a lot, because they know that a lot of people are manipulating the reviews. By sales, I mean that Amazon can see how much you're selling, and they know that people are buying it. It must be a good product, so they'll start ranking it higher. So if there's a good selling product already, it'll start appearing when you search for sort of kind of the keywords behind it. Momentum, I mean that if your product hits Amazon with a lot of force and goes from 0 to selling a lot very, very quickly, Amazon will already rate that and will rank you higher as well. Unfortunately, none of those things are that easy to come by, and they're all a bit cart before the horse type deal, horse before the cart. How do you get reviews without having sales? How do you get sales without having sales?
Yeah.
So this is where you've got to be a bit creative. Amazon have a new product launch feature that you can pay for, where they'll try and get you your first 5 reviews, basically by incentivising people to leave a review by giving them like an Amazon voucher after they bought your product if they buy it.
What do you think about that?
So this is their approach to what a lot of people used to do. Is they used to give out products at like a 99% discount on the forums in exchange for reviews. So people would get the product from £1 or whatever, leave a review. Amazon has banned that practice and no longer works. Instead, they've launched their own kind of version. Yeah, it kind of makes sense, as it doesn't really work that well, and you're only getting 5 reviews out of it. Really, I'd say you need around 15 to 20 reviews. You need to be 4.5 or 5 star for you to get any kind of benefit out of it.
And is there a time frame around that, in terms of once you've launched your product? When should you aim to have that kind of 20 reviews, 4.5 to 5 star?
As soon as possible, really. Yeah, you won't start getting... You'll it's not... So the thing about reviews is it does help with your rankings, but it's more about conversions once people are already looking at your product. So if you don't have any reviews, or if they're bad reviews, then a lot of people are going to look at it and then not buy it.
Yeah, they're going to buy your competitors.
If you've got 15 to 20... The more reviews you have, the better, but there are diminishing returns. The difference between having 150 and 200 is almost insignificant. Yeah. Whereas the difference between having 1 and 20 is huge. Yeah. So try and get them as quickly as possible. Generally, you want people who leave in the reviews to have bought it at full price. You want them to have an Amazon account that's reviewed things before. That's not just like a brand new Amazon account. You want it to be not too easily linked to you. So a lot of people get friends and family, and if, say, 3 people leave a review from the same IP address or with the same family surname, Amazon are quite quick on noticing that and deleting those reviews, and they might punish you.
Yeah, so family's not good, but maybe friends is, as long as they're not all reviewing from the same address.
Yeah, be creative.
Yeah.
But also, like, the best thing to do is to get sales from outside of Amazon. So doing Instagram campaigns, again, like friends and family. With the gin, we've done a big focus on like local marketing, so getting in local newspapers and stuff like that, hoping that will then translate to online orders, which will then build momentum and then get us past this early phase.
Yeah.
Once you start getting some sales, you can also start emailing your customers with asking for reviews. They use, again, like, there's lots of tricks people use to try and get reviews. So they might say stuff like, if you liked it, click here to leave a review. If you don't like it, click here. And the click here will send you to like an email us form instead. So they're basically saying, no, if you like it, if you don't like it, don't leave a review and email me instead, and we'll like sort it out.
Resolve your issue.
Again, like, Amazon has closed down on that as well. That's against the terms and conditions. A lot of people still do it. One thing I do is I'll send an initial email, which is just a bit of like a welcome, like a how-to guide, some tips and stuff about it. And then I'll say like, oh, if there's any issues, please get in touch, and I'll like sort it out. And my hope is if someone has an issue, they'll reply to that one. Then 4 or 5 days later, if I've had to people who haven't responded to that email, I'll then send like the asking for reviews email. This used to work much better than it does now, because a lot of people are opting out of receiving emails at all. And I think people have got a bit used to being like spam emailed by sellers on Amazon anyway, and don't really bother reading them.
The amount I've had in the last week leading up to Christmas, because I've bought things on Amazon, every single product drives me mad, and it's multiple emails as well. It's not just one from each seller. They
really harass you, don't they?
Yeah.
So I try not to do that, and I recommend not doing it, because some people leave you a bad review just because of it.
Yeah.
One thing to say about reviews is there's 2 types of reviews you can get. There can be a review on your product, and there can be a review on you as a seller. And generally, a review on you as a seller isn't as bad as one on your product, because most people will probably never see it. Especially if you're fulfilled by Amazon, it doesn't really matter that much. So what some people will try and do is they'll try and direct bad reviews towards their seller feedback instead of their product feedback. Something else you can do is try and work out who's left you like bad or mediocre reviews and get in touch with them and try and sort it out. That can work quite well. It can be sometimes hard to work out who left a review because there's no way of like linking the two. Generally, you just got to do a lot. I mean, there's lots of dodgy things. What a lot of Chinese more dodgy sellers do, who aren't really worried about any comeback, is that they will have groups on Facebook where they'll ask people to buy it and they'll refund them on PayPal, so that Amazon can't see what you're doing, basically. So people will buy loads of stuff, and they're in exchange for a 5-star review, you get it kind of for free.
Which again, you wouldn't recommend.
I wouldn't recommend, because it's against Amazon's terms and conditions, and they might ban you as a seller.
Yeah.
And where some of these Chinese companies don't care about that, because they'll just create a new company and create a new seller account, we care a little bit more. We want to safeguard that.
Yeah, and we've invested in the brand. You invest in the brand when you build it. You don't want to keep creating new businesses for the sake of it.
Yeah. The other thing you can do is there's adverts on Amazon itself. There's a few different types. There's what we call lightning deals, where basically your stuff is discounted a set amount for an hour or 2. There is general adverts, which are kind of pay-per-click sponsored ads. And there are ads around your brand, so you can have a kind of paid for brand presence with your own basic website on Amazon itself that people can click on. Generally, pretty much everyone should be doing the product advert stuff, because my theory on that is as long as it's not losing money, it's worth doing just for the momentum and just getting the extra reviews and the extra sales velocity. Basically, what you do is very easy. It's kind of automate. I just use the automated setting. You can make it a bit more complicated, but start with the automated one. Amazon will look at your product and find keywords that are linked to it. Every week or so, I'll download a report which will tell me what keywords people are clicking on, and then I'll just tell it to ignore certain keywords which aren't that useful. So, for instance, with table tennis bats, one problem we find is that Amazon was bidding on the keyword for tennis bat or tennis racket. Obviously, that's a different sport, so I have to go through and manually tell it not to do that. But it's all quite straightforward. And again, I've got blog posts and all this sort of stuff which you can look at. The way it kind of works is you pay per click, and you'll get an ACOS, which is your kind of cost of sale per one, and it'll be done as a percentage. So if you know you make 30% on a product, you can have an ACOS of up to 30%. And then, of course, the real best way to do it is to try and get sales from off Amazon. And that's what I'm going to keep sort of pushing that you should do. Don't rely on building it and people buying it. You should kind of work backwards and think about your marketing strategy. And it's kind of why at the beginning I spoke about going into industries or hobbies that you actually know a lot about. So for something like within jiu-jitsu, I know quite a lot of the coaches and people around, and I know who to talk to. I know the forums people hang out on. I don't have to just rely on people searching for what I'm selling on Amazon.
Yeah, you know the events, you know the gyms, or the brands that run the gyms.
Yeah.
The physical side as well as the online side.
Yeah, I know who to sponsor, all that kind of stuff. The real beauty of Amazon FBA is the scale of it. You can, as a one-person business, send all your stock into it. It doesn't matter how many you sell. You don't need to run around delivering stuff to the post office and wrapping it all. If you sold 100 products, that's fine. If you scale up and you've got a product line of 76 items and you're selling thousands of them, it's all kind of handled by Amazon and their logistics network. To the point where you can actually scale internationally and become an international business, still just based here in the UK or wherever it is that you're based. So Amazon FBA is in quite a few different countries. You got it in USA, Canada, Mexico, Australia, Germany, Italy, France, Spain, here in the UK, India and Japan. And especially if it's selling in one place, there's almost no reason why you can't go and expand to those different regions. And there are some sort of legal stuff to be aware about in each place. But a bit of Googling can solve that most of the time, and your freight forwarder will be able to help you with how you actually get the products into the country and what to do. And then it's going to be the exact same thing. Your stuff will leave the factory, your freight forwarder will then deliver it to the country, they'll hand it over to the UPS, the prepaid delivery people, they'll send it to Amazon, and then from there it's all handled. Especially we're going into USA and Canada and the UK, all speak the same language, the cultures aren't that different, so it's a bit of a no-brainer really.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the languages. So for example with Spain and Germany, do you have to invest a lot in translation?
So Amazon have a translation service that you pay for, and they'll translate over your listing. I think it's worth paying someone different yourself because they don't really care and they do make mistakes.
Yeah, there aren't that many words in a listing and you want the quality to be really good.
Yeah, customer service is a bit more difficult. So Amazon handle 90% of your customer service for you, any kind of returns and stuff like that. But it is still possible for people to message you. I reckon for every 100 sales, I'll get 2 messages maybe.
From all over the world, or just from customers that don't speak English?
Just in general.
Okay.
Yeah, all over the world. About every 100 sales, I'll get about 2. Maybe more like 1.5, 1. So it's not very many, but still, that means you're going to get quite a lot of different language. And people do hire customer service reps for their Amazon businesses. There are agencies you can go to where basically they'll share So they'll have one full-time native German speaker who manages the customer service for 50 different Amazon businesses.
Yeah.
Because each one is only getting 3 emails a month or something in German.
So it's really low volume.
So it's low volume. It's not worth them hiring someone themselves, but it is worth having like a native speaker to deal with it, and also to the quick responses, because Amazon basically requires that you respond to all customer queries within 24 hours. If you don't, it kind of damages your metrics a little bit, and if you abuse it too much, you could get your account suspended. Which kind of brings me on a little bit to the criticisms that people have with Amazon. Their seller support is pretty bad. If you have any problems, it's going to take you a long time to sort it out. They do have a tendency of suspending people's accounts or suspending listings, often because of there's a lot of malicious backstabbery by competitors on Amazon, particularly the same Chinese people who are doing the paying for reviews basically are also the ones who feel it's fair game to submit a fake fraudulent claim on your item or leave a bad review on your stuff, and that kind of stuff is very difficult to deal with. One of the trends at the moment are people filing fake patents in places like Switzerland and Germany.
Wow.
And then submitting a patent infringement notice on, say, Amazon USA.
Yeah. And
Amazon aren't very good at working out whether these are legit or not.
Yeah, because Switzerland makes it sound like it is legit.
Yeah, and they'll go on the website, it'll be in a different language, and they're not sure, has it been approved? Has it not? Has it just been filed?
Yeah.
Is it a pending one? Because they use different terminology. And Amazon's having to deal with kind of patent stuff from all over the world.
Yeah.
And their reaction is they will just suspend your listing while looking into it.
Yeah.
So people will lock down a trending market for maybe like 3 weeks or something, or a month.
Wow.
And so there's quite a lot of these issues with Amazon.
And it's constantly evolving, right?
And it's constantly evolving, and the people gaming the system are getting cleverer. But what I'd say about all of this is these are problems that come with success. It's only an issue if you're on it, if you're in the game, and if you're selling. I do get angry with Amazon because stuff will go wrong, but at the same time, like, I'm only getting angry with them because I'm losing out on the thousands of sales I would have been getting otherwise. But I'm only getting those thousands of sales because I'm on Amazon in the first place.
Exactly, they're providing that platform.
They're providing the platform. If I sell it which I do, I sell it on my own. I sell all my stuff on my own website as well, and that's something you might want to consider to try and diversify a little bit and protect you a bit from the variance. But I sell a fraction of the amount. I sell on eBay as well. I sell a fraction of the amount on eBay than I do on Amazon. So Amazon just makes it really easy. And yeah, there are problems. It's not perfect. But, if you're not in the game, then these problems don't matter. They're all good problems to have, is what I'm trying to say.
One of the downsides I found using Amazon, which I was really surprised about when we set up the gin listing, was how difficult the technology was to use. I was really shocked how it was like loads of different back-end systems that were kind of glued together, and it didn't really work very well. And I thought going into working with Amazon, it was going to be really good user experience.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And I think it is from a customer point of view, but from a seller point of view, they've got a lot of work to do.
It doesn't feel like Amazon, does it?
No.
When you go on their website and it's all Web 2.0 and blocky and doesn't really work properly.
Yeah, like I remember there was a couple of buttons we needed to press.
It just didn't work.
It just didn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
The amount of screenshots and videos we actually did of us clicking the button, sending it to Amazon. It sounds so silly, but it was really frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a bunch of issues. And that, like, we could talk about Amazon all day because there's loads of stuff. There's stuff to do with VAT and sales tax and all this kind of thing. But generally, I'm trying to aim this podcast slightly at UK customers.
Yeah.
If you're in the UK and you're signed up to begin with on UK Seller Central, on UK Amazon FBA, then you don't really need to worry about that. In the UK, you don't need to become VAT registered until you hit, I think it's about £80,000 of turnover at the moment. Which again, once you hit that, that's a good problem to have.
Yep.
Include it in your calculations, and I do talk about that in the blog post. But you don't need to worry too much. Same with sales tax in the USA. You only need to worry about that once you hit the USA. And as a UK seller, you're going to start off by doing the UK. And I think that's it for the moment. So let me summarise quickly, because I realise this is quite hard to take in when listening. In some ways, it's easier listening on audio. In other ways, it's harder because you can't go back and reference what's just been said. So do go and look at that blog post, How to Start an Amazon FBA Business, as a reference point, where I talk about, what is an Amazon FBA business, the differences between reselling and building your own brand. I talk about how to choose your products, the pricing, size, complexity, competition, how to do market research, and the tools you can use to easily kind of like search and filter through what your competitors are doing, how to create your own brand, how the names work, how does the trademark work, how to get onto brand registry, building your own website, the pros and cons of using selling on your own website versus selling just on Amazon and driving your traffic there. Talk about manufacturing, how to find a factory, how to use stuff like Alibaba, how to message them, the prototyping, what you should be thinking about with negotiation and how much negotiating room there is there. I talk about international shipping, the freight forwarding, how to transport your goods around the world and make sure you're sort of complying with all the laws. The final delivery to Amazon, talking about your labels and how you actually get it into the warehouses, and your marketing, your reviews, your momentum, how to get sales, how to use advertising, then how to expand to different countries and the differences between them and why you should do it. But all in all, I want to leave it by saying that Amazon FBA business is fabulous, and it has enabled people like us to start one person or very small team businesses that are able to scale to be huge. Take our table tennis business for the moment. It's grown from launching in 2013 on Amazon, a small brand that no one's ever really heard of. It's now one of the most well-known brands in the UK. It's the best-selling table tennis products in the UK, and we sell in 20 different countries around the world, and it's really good. And it's still just two of us basically working on it. It's a very small business in terms of the people behind it, but in terms of revenue and profit it's making, it's very big, and it's something that wouldn't have been possible really without the kind of the infrastructure that Amazon has put into place. And that hasn't changed. Yes, some of these easy strategies to make money on Amazon, the arbitrage, the white labeling of weird products, that has changed. That isn't really there anymore. But still, the building of a brand, creating better products in your competition, and targeting on industries that are underserved does really work well, and it's just going to get better and easier to use into the future. Thank you, and if you've got any questions, you can email me at hello@sampriestley.com. All kind of resources about Amazon you can also find on my website, or you can just Google it. You can Google Sam Priestley and Amazon FBA. In a week or two, I think I'm going to do a question and answer podcast. So if you want to ask me anything, it doesn't need to be about Amazon, it could be about anything, then yeah, email me with your questions and I'll be happy to answer them. And that's it.
Bye.